Hello everyone, and thank you all for participating in this live stream, and many thanks to all the members of our community who will join later on or will watch this live stream in a recording. And because this is the first community chat live stream in 2025, first of all, Happy New Year to you all, to your families, friends, and to all good people worldwide. I checked a couple of minutes ago my Patreon boosty, and I did not see any questions there. And so I will start with the news part, this live stream, and then I will go to the questions that I will see in the chat. We have some breaking news for this moment. Many of you probably already know that Kyiv regime's forces and NATO mercenaries launched a relatively large-scale offensive operation in the Kursk salient area this morning, and we already have some preliminary data about these developments. I reported about it on my Telegram and Twitter X page, but let's go through some details that is known for now. Defense Ministry shared some information with public. So Ukrainian troops attempted a counterattack in the area of the village of Berdin in the Kursk direction, but the Russian North group of forces defeated these attacking forces. According to preliminary information, several armored columns were involved in the first wave of attack, and the Defense Ministry reported that for example, on January, let's go through some details here. On January 5th, at about 9 o'clock in the morning, Moscow time, in order to stop advances of the Russian troops in the Kursk direction, the enemy launched counterattack with an assault group consisting of 2 tanks, a barrier vehicle, and 12 combat armored vehicles, with the landing troops in the direction of village of Berdin. A report says Russian aviation and artillery together with the ground forces were involved in neutralizing these enemy units. Operation to destroy the Ukrainian armed forces formations continues, according to Defense Ministry. In total, Defense Ministry reported that in total, over the past 24 hours, North group of forces in Kursk direction neutralized 14 or conducted strikes on units of 14 Ukrainian brigades and repelled 2 other counterattacks. Overall losses amounted to 340 military personnel, 4 tanks, 3 infantry fighting vehicles, 4 armored personnel carriers, 12 combat armored vehicles, a barrier clearing vehicle, 12 other vehicles, motor vehicles, civilian cars basically that are transformed for military purposes. And according to Defense Ministry, overall number of casualties on the side of Kyiv regime's forces and NATO mercenaries is about 50,000 in the Kursk salient alone since the beginning of invasion. Just to notice, since the beginning of invasion, Kyiv regime already lost about 270 tanks and thousands of other equipment. Right now, just before I started the live stream, several channels on Telegram, for example, Kirill Fyodorov's channel, reported that after first columns of the Kyiv regime were destroyed this morning by Russian forces that are engaged in these offensive operations in the Kursk salient area, Kyiv regime launched a second wave of attack with more armored groups. Right now you can see some footage on your screen of work of Russian FPV drones to neutralize this attacking force. More information is definitely needed to have a better understanding of the situation in the Kursk salient area, but I guess, as I already said, we are dealing with certainly in a somewhat large-scale offensive operation. on part of Kiev regime. But you know, I hope Russian troops are locked and ready to neutralize all the attacking troops. For tomorrow's update, for tomorrow's morning, obviously more information will be available, and I will share this additional news in next updates. But picture is not yet clear, because simultaneously this morning several sources were reporting about Russian offensive operations also in the Kursk salient. So simultaneously, right now at this point, Kiev regime's forces are conducting these local scale offensives in the Kursk salient area, and also Russian troops are conducting offensive operations and advancing. So that's what is known for now. And dear friends, I will now go to beginning of today's workday on my Telegram page, and I will share some additional news that I posted on my Telegram since the beginning of this day. Although simultaneously, let me monitor chat, and I give you some answers if I see any questions. And dear friends, let me remind you that if I will receive any question right now during the live stream on a donation alert platform, on Boosty platform, let's open Boosty also, or on Patreon, I will try to give you answer on that. There is some, yes, it works, it does work. So okay, I will monitor these platforms, and if any question through PayPal, Magda, moderator, that helps me with PayPal, Magda will send me your question, and I will try to answer as informative way as I possibly can. But meanwhile, let's monitor chat and go through some questions here. Nikos is asking a question one. Hello, Levan. In the last 2 months, I've been looking videos from countries like Moldova, Georgia, Belarus, and Russia. I wanted to know their opinion of the younger generations 2025 about Russia. Well, in Belarus and Russia, opinion obviously are pro-Russian in vast majority, understandably so, right, and friendly. When it comes to Georgia and Moldova, well, it's a bit different situation in Georgia and Moldova, because in both countries, obviously, since the collapse of Soviet Union, anti-Russian propaganda was dominating their airwaves due to Western-controlled regimes mainly, and quite often, especially in Georgia. And therefore, unfortunately, significant number of younger generations in both countries are not so much pro-Western, but more xenophobic, I will say, and Russophobic included. But I cannot give you some percentage numbers, because I have no studies on my hands right now. But yes, I can tell you that unfortunately, due to this extreme Russophobic, xenophobic propaganda in a number of post-Soviet republics, including Georgia and Moldova, I guess somewhat significant number of younger generation is anti-Russian. If you ask them why, they might struggle to give you informative, logical answer. They will start looking into history for some reasons. They will start blaming Russia for everything that they didn't like, or Moldova, between Russia and any other former Soviet republic. There was always action and reaction, right? And Russia is always reacting. But unfortunately, many people are maybe too lazy to dig into some nuances, some details, to learn some more, and therefore, they are taking whatever garbage propaganda is on surface, and that eventually influences their mindset, right? It happens everywhere, by the way. Unfortunately, not that many people really want to know in details what is going on, right? Majority, takes just some surface information and then starts thinking that they know stuff while they didn't, right? That's my answer to you. But same time, by the way, if you ask me, will I characterize societies in Moldova or Georgia as anti-Russian in general? No, I would not, because majority in Georgia, for example, just recently in 26th of October 2024, demonstrated their ideological stance, let's say, and they supporting current ruling party, right, Georgian Dream. And if you take a look at the policies of Georgian Dream, well, they were very pragmatic. They were very pragmatic in their policies internally or foreign policy, including in regards to Russia, and that's why they've been hated by Western ruling elites and Western ruling class, and that's why Washington and other major capitals in the West were actively trying to conduct regime change in Georgia, right? And this process still continues, by the way, until now. Attempt to destabilize Georgia is ongoing, right? But hopefully they will not succeed with regime change, but they still are trying. So that's why I'm saying that in general, in my understanding, majority of society in Georgia stands on the same page with the current ruling party, that it is better to have a pragmatic, normal relationships with Russia, because after all, it's a neighboring country, obviously, and someday relationships have to be improved. All the issues between Tbilisi and Moscow have to be resolved, and there are ways, by the way. I spoke about this quite a number of times. There are ways to resolve this issue. For example, by working on idea of confederation with South Ossetia and Abkhazia, and I'm quite sure Moscow would not be against it. Exactly the opposite. I guess Moscow will even support that idea, because in that case, if Tbilisi, Sukhumi, and Tskhinvali will cooperate on idea of, or work on idea of getting united under umbrella of a new confederative state, in that case, Russia will recognize that new state, and as a result, between Tbilisi and Moscow, there will be no major obstacle in relationships that are existing right now, isn't it? Because Russia has recognized independence of South Ossetia and Abkhazia that Georgia considers to be its territories, right? So yes, majority in Georgia definitely are not Russophobes. I will say they are on a stance of pragmatism and for normalization of the relationship. So when it comes to Moldova, situation is even nothing is simple, but big difference in terms that at least half of population in Moldova are actually not just for pragmatic relationships, pragmatic approach and good relationships with Russia, but I will say actually very much pro-Russian, and they consider themselves to be a part of Russian world, right? I remind you, dear friends, that when recently there was a presidential elections in Moldova, news was circulating on internet, and in many media outlets also reported that about 300,000 to 500,000 citizens of Moldova are living here in Russia, right? And you can imagine number of relatives that they have back home, right? They are working here in Russia, making some money, and they're supporting their relatives, right? And these people obviously are not anti-Russian in any way, shape, or form, right? And unfortunately, what had happened during those presidential elections is that, according to some reports that I see, even though there is a huger community of citizens of Moldova in Russia, very few, compared to overall numbers of Moldovan citizens, very few ballots, voting ballots, were sent to Russia. So therefore, thousands, tens of thousands, and I guess hundreds of thousands of people were denied by this pro-Western regime in Moldova, by Sandu's regime, to vote. And what had happened during those so-called elections, even despite that interference into election process, candidate that is in support of good relationships with Russia was winning. But in the last hour, Moldovan authorities said that they receive updated numbers from European states, Western European states, where there is also, I don't know how many, but I guess certain number of citizens of Moldova that are living and working and so on. And I believe Moldavian, this pro-Western regime authorities manipulated with the data, and they give a victory to Maia Sandu. I'm 100% convinced, by the way, those elections were rigged, and in reality, another candidate has won. But because power is in hands of Western secret services in Moldova, they play out this game, and Sandu is now formally, at least, president of Moldova. So therefore, if you ask me, is Moldovan society like Russophobic or anti-Russian, I will say no. No. Majority is not just in support of good relationships with Russia, but most likely considers themselves to be part of Russian world. Although there is, also has to be noticed that in Moldova there is significant part of society that considers themselves to be Romanians, not even Moldavians, by the way. As far as I understand, they don't believe in existence of Moldavians. They consider themselves Romanians, right? And after all, Moldova used to be part of Romania before Second World War, right? And that's why whenever I'm talking about Moldova, I'm saying that this quasi-state is destined to undergo full-scale disintegration, and some either will declare independence or will join Russia. That's how I see future of Moldova in terms of next 5 to 10 years. Although, who knows? So therefore, yes, there are a certain number of population in Moldova that probably can be considered as anti-Russian or maybe even Russophobic, but majority, no. Majority is I will say, part of Russian world, right? This is my answer on your first question, dear friends. And also, Nikos is asking, all I see in this Russophobia, all I see is this Russophobia and pure hatred for Russia and Putin. My question is, when the whole Europe hates Russia, particularly the young generations, how can there be peace? Well, that's a big question, isn't it? Unfortunately, propaganda is quite effective method to brainwash people, especially young generations. And yet again, I don't have statistics on my hand, but I can believe you that significant number of younger generations in Western states, let's say, are Russophobic and hate us. Yet again, if you ask them why, they will probably struggle to give you any adequate answer. They hate us just because they've been told to hate us by propaganda, right? But yet again, I mean, when it comes to policies, when it comes to peace, I mean, peace and war, that's something that is connected with the politics, isn't it? And politician and political class. And therefore, well, one should keep in mind that during the Cold War, entire West was hating us also, right? But somehow political class in the West, political class in Soviet Union managed to avoid their full-scale war, right? So therefore, it is unfortunate that there is this propaganda of hate towards us in the West, and I don't think this will stop anytime soon. But in other hand, I also hope that among Western political elites, there are enough adequate people that will keep all the hotheads at bay or in check. So therefore, sides will avoid the risks of full-scale conflict. Although, unfortunately, I have to say that in my personal opinion, there is a quite high chances, high risk that during the full-scale disintegration of Ukraine, which is absolutely inevitable in my personal opinion, there might be some accidents between Russian and NATO troops. Maybe these accidents might start occur in relatively short time, in a couple of weeks even. Who knows? Although I don't believe that these accidents will eventually provoke full-scale war. Probably sides will manage to, control the situation, and at some point, I think once everybody, especially among Western ruling class, will realize this, that further escalation is will definitely be the end of everything. Once this realization will settles in among Western elites, I guess at that point we will see quite rapid de-escalation of the situation. Relationships between Russia and the Western states not going to become good or on friendly terms for decades and decades, but at least there will be no full-scale war, which is in current situation, I will say, best we can wish for. Right, that's my answer to you for your second question. And let's go through chapter. Yaroslav Pelichek is commenting. Greetings to all of you friends from snowed Czech Republic. Greetings to you, Yaroslav, and greetings to you all, dear friends, everybody, and thank you all for participating in this stream. I know timing is different than usual, but for now, that's how it is. I can see a question also from Nikos, and question is, even here in Greece, my own brother watches Piers Morgan, and he hates Russia because of it. I just don't think Russia can win against something like this, being hated by their youngest generations. Well, I can see there are some technical issues right now. Hopefully I am back. So yes, it is sad to hear that your brother is influenced by propaganda, this Russophobic propaganda, including from Piers Morgan. When it comes to Piers Morgan, by the way, he is such a moron, isn't it? How many times when he had really high-level intellectuals, how many times he was humiliated, basically? How many times his guests demonstrated how ignorant and poorly educated Piers Morgan really is, right? And I don't know, man. I would recommend your brother to watch some more knowledgeable people, but it's none of my business anyways. But yet again, dear friends, I partially answered the question, and one should also keep in mind that Western world is only small part of the rest of the humanity, right? I can see that some people in the West think that they are in a center of the universe, but this is not the case. And to be honest, Russia don't really need Western world, right? Any more than Western world needs Russia. So if one day Western ruling elites, Western ruling class will decide that they want to normalize relationships with us, okay, great. If they will manage to build trust, that would be great, right? But if not, then okay. World is huge, right? And 80% of humanity is actually lives outside of Western world, and Russia has a great relationships with this 80%, right? So I don't see issue here, I don't really. It is sad, once again, it is sad that due to this Russophobic propaganda, a significant number of the population in the West hates us, but okay, what are you gonna do about it? I can only hope that people like you, people like our community, members of our community from the Western world that are not Russophobic and don't see Russia as an enemy and don't hate us, people like you will manage to inform more and more people in the West and will try to open their eyes to the truth. which is we are not enemies. I mean, we are not enemies, by the way. I don't see no Western state as an enemy. I definitely don't see any people of any Western state as my enemy, right? Western ruling class, Western so-called elites, I can see them as my enemies, and I can see them also Western world, and there are many other countries outside of the West also. But yet again, I'm very direct always in my criticism, isn't it? I'm critical of Western ruling class. I see them as a threat, but that's a Western ruling class, tiny percentage of overall population of the West, and I don't see any other people in the West or anywhere else as to be hostile towards us or to be our enemies, you know. So that's my answer, by the way. And in any ways, we ordinary people should stick together, by the way. We only have each other, right? Because elites, by the way, I mean, they're living different world, and we ordinary people are living real life, right? So hopefully I did give you informative enough answers. Q Basser is asking, how do you see this Kursk escalation? Well, this is definitely, in my personal opinion, I mean, demonstration of frustration and this desperation on part of Kyiv regime and its NATO backers, because they know perfectly well on the current rate of Russian advances in the Kursk salient area and on the current rate of losses that Kyiv regime is suffering on daily basis. And I remind you, dear friends, that according to Russian Defense Ministry, for example, Kyiv regime's forces and NATO mercenaries are losing from 300 to 500 military personnel every single day in that direction. And reports are that right now in Kursk salient area there might be 10 to 15,000 troops of invading forces, and another 10 to 15,000, maybe up to 20, could be stationed in the Sumy region as a reserves. And right now maybe those reserve troops have been deployed in the Kursk salient area to participate in this seems like relatively large-scale offensive operations. But Kyiv regime and their Western backers, they understand perfectly well that on the current rate of Russian advances and losses on the part of Kyiv regime, there will be no invading force left in the Kursk salient area in next 4 to 6 weeks time, right? And out of desperation, I guess they launched this offensive operation, which is going nowhere. I am quite sure Russian troops, Russian military intelligence knew about preparations that Kyiv regime had in regards to this direction, and I guess I don't know how many waves there will be of this in this offensive, but I guess Russian troops are locked and ready to neutralize all these armored columns that Kyiv regime is sending now on towards their actually death, right? This is suicidal operation, yet another suicidal operation that Kyiv regime and NATO launched basically against Russia, sacrificing hundreds or most likely even thousands of people. I mean, I guess in several days' time we will learn how many military personnel Kyiv regime lost during this, I mean, counteroffensive, let's say, or offensive, or whatever it is, right? So situation, I believe, is under Russian control. Nothing is going to happen there that will turn the tide or will influence overall situation on the line of contact in any more or less significant way. That's about it, right? Same time, dear friends, we should keep in mind that according to some reports, Kyiv regime has accumulated yet another, one may argue, army, number of brigades that may be used to launch another offensive operation, maybe in Belgorod region direction, maybe in Bryansk direction, or maybe even towards Belarus. Anything is possible. This new grouping of forces of Kyiv regime that yet again was trained and armed by NATO has a square sign, right? Square identification sign, and these vehicles or armored vehicles, military equipment, basically with such identification sign, was spotted in Chernigov region. So if a main group of forces stationed there, then most likely that means that potential direction of this plausible offensive of the Kiev regime and NATO mercenaries could be Bryansk region or Belarus. This is the areas that Chernigov region is bordering, right? Although, who knows, it is technically quite plausible that this grouping of forces could be deployed in any other direction. You know, they might be deployed towards Zaporozhye region, for example, and Kiev regime might try to launch operation towards Zaporozhye nuclear power plant, for example. That's also theoretically at least possible. Kiev regime may use that new grouping of forces in suicidal operations towards Belgorod region. So, I mean, they still have a significant number of manpower that they might sacrifice in any direction, right? They might be used even in the Kursk region. And in that case, today or tomorrow or day after, we might notice on videos from Kursk salient area, armored vehicles and military equipment with that square symbol, right? So Kiev regime still has some potential, because after all, one should keep in mind that, I mean, with few exceptions, almost entire NATO member states are in support of these terrorists and Nazis, right? And they spend quite a lot of money to arm these terrorists, right? To train these terrorists. And you know, they are Western ruling class, as far as I understand, is ready to sacrifice all of them, everybody there, to harm Russia in any way, shape, or form, right? But to answer your question, yes, it is a escalation in the Kursk salient area, but my belief is that Russian side was ready for such development, and most likely this offensives will be localized and eventually neutralized, right? These offensive forces. Situation in any way is under Russian operational control. I have no doubts about that. And let's go through some more questions. Let me check here, by the way. As I said during the previous update, I'm not quite sure donation alerts is even working. Let me check Boosty also. So nothing here. Okay, and well, let's Z12IT is here. Hello, my friend from Italy. Daniela is here. Nidish Kumar is here. Hello to you all, dear friends, and thank you for your time and attention. And obviously, many thanks to all the members of our community who will join later on or watch this live stream in a recording. And sorry if I will miss any of the questions, dear friends. I'm trying to be accurate. Nidish Kumar is commenting, Levan, Russia must take Odessa as well. Transnistria will be, only then Transnistria will be safe. I agree with you. 100%. And my belief is that once this conflict will end and Ukraine will finally undergo full-scale disintegration, Russia will, I mean, all the territories of this former Soviet Republic, at least from Kharkov region to Odessa region, will rejoin Russia because they are part of Russia, historical Russia, right? And so I agree with you completely. And when it comes to Odessa region, once Russian troops will liberate Odessa region, of course, Transnistria will be safe because there is a direct route, isn't it, from Transnistria to Odessa region and then to mainland Russia. In any case, by the way, even if somehow, just to have a thought experiment, even if in next month or two, some agreement has been achieved to freeze the conflict, let's say, on current lines, at least, I guess, at least Moscow, first of all, that's hardly possible, but I guess Moscow will do its best to at least make sure that there is no hostile anti-Russian Russophobic regime in Kiev, right? And Western control will only remain in the western parts of Ukraine. So in any case, I think Transnistria will be safe and will overcome all the obstacles that people there in Transnistria are facing now, including energy blockade, by the way, that they are experiencing right now. Also questions. I see a question now. Thomas Presson is asking about exactly about blackouts in Transnistria. Well, unfortunately, it is true that there is blackouts in Transnistria, and this is due to absence of gas, Russian gas, that was transited to Moldova and also to Transnistria through Ukraine. Then no more gas is being transferred through Ukrainian pipeline network, right? But I'm quite sure Russia is working right now with its partners to make sure that one way or another, but Transnistria will overcome energy crisis. It's not gonna be easy. But I guess I don't want to speculate. I mean, there is several ways that Russia can resolve this issue, and let's wait and see which one will work eventually. But I assure you, dear friend, that we know what is going on in Transnistria, and I'm quite sure Russian leadership is working actively to help the people there, and help will come 100%. Hourcraft is here. Hello, Hourcrafter, and he's asking question: in what part of Moscow do you live now? I can only give you, general direction for security. Who knows who is watching? This who else is watching this live stream, isn't it? It's not just our community, but some other people might watch also. So therefore, I cannot give you exact address, obviously, but it's a northern western part of Moscow. I can tell you that. The northern western part of Moscow is half of Moscow, basically. So that's all I can tell you, dear friend. Matthew is asking, what is the likelihood of NATO intervention with their boots on the ground? I think it is almost, in my personal opinion, it is almost inevitable that NATO troops will eventually enter Western Ukraine, at least Western Ukraine. I have no doubts about it. And there are, whenever I'm mentioning full-scale disintegration of Ukraine, I mean that Western Ukraine eventually will become, as a result of this disintegration, will become part controlled by NATO, and eventually will be reclaimed by Poland, most likely Hungary and Romania, and the rest of their territory will be under direct or indirect control of Moscow or influence of Moscow. So therefore, in Western Ukraine, I believe it is inevitable that NATO troops will be stationed, right? They will be there. I cannot give you a time frame, isn't it? I could not know, but eventually, I believe, yes, NATO troops will enter Western Ukraine under whatever pretext, right? And that's why I said, dear friends, that during this full-scale disintegration of this so-called Ukraine, there might be some local-scale skirmishes between Russian and the NATO troops. There might be some some situations, but I believe that these possible hostilities will remain on a local scale and will not provoke a full-scale war between the sides. But I definitely expect some direct clashes to happen, local-scale direct clashes to happen between Russia and NATO, but not a full-scale war. Bench or Dentist here. Hello, Bench. Question is, it's reported that in some African countries, their people are attacking all Chinese assets. I don't know difference. I do know that Western ruling class, Western propaganda is actively working to force China out of Africa. And they are working in propaganda, in field of propaganda also. And I would not be surprised at all if in some countries there will be some hostilities towards Chinese investors, Chinese investments, and everything Chinese. But yet again, in strategical terms, do those African nations that are trying to build themselves, right, to reach a next level of developments, do they really have much options but to be friendly towards emerging multipolar world and to be open to the multipolar world? They experience Western dominance for not just for decades but for centuries, and are they happy with the results? Are they happy with the results? I mean, I know propaganda can brainwash a certain number of peoples, but I mean, it's all about knowledge and strategical thinking, isn't it? Western world was dominating over the Africa for centuries, and was it good for any good for Africa? No. They exploited Africa, and there are many countries in Africa still are under direct or indirect control of their Western states, right? And they've still being exploited. And did you see billions of dollars of investments in these African countries from the West? No, you didn't see those investments, right? Exactly the opposite is happening. These countries have been robbed. And now, China is investing, right? And yes, there is a strings attached with Chinese investments, by the way. I will agree with that. The strings are attached with Chinese investments, and that may be risky, right? For some countries to, take these huge loans and then to be forced to basically, once they are unable to pay back, to, transfer to China certain assets that they have. In many cases, that's exactly what is happening. Not just in Africa, by the way, but in other parts of this world also. But this is the objective reality. I mean, who would give you billions of dollars of worth of investments for nothing? I mean, let's be real here. It's just, it is what it is. That's the world that we are living in, and that's the reality, right? At least you have some investments. While under Western dominance, there was no investments at all. There was only robbing of the countries. That's what it is, by the way. But I am not sure about details that you are asking. I mean, maybe in some African country right now, today or yesterday, was some unrest against Chinese investors or Chinese companies. I don't know about that, but in general, I know that Western ruling class is actively working to push out China from Africa, and they are trying to do this for over a decade now, or even more, right? Also, Benchudent is asking, it's the same question, dear friend, so I try to give you an answer on that. Auracraft is asking, have you heard of American Villager 1 in Istra, northwest of Moscow? Yes, I have heard of that. I never been there, but I do know that there is certain settlement that being called American Village. I don't even know why. Maybe in that area there is concentrated. Maybe that's the reasoning behind it. I have no idea, but it might be because more and more people, more and more families from the Western states are migrating to Russia. right? And they are welcome, by the way. They are welcome. I'm all in support of that. And if it was up to me, I would definitely recommend Russian leadership to make it easier for citizens, hardworking, law-obeying citizens of the Western world to migrate in Russia with their families. They will bring, first of all, they will bring people, right? And Russia needs people. More the better. Expertise with them, right? So it will be beneficial not just for these migrants, but it will be beneficial overall for society and for the country. So I'm all in support of that. And they will integrate, by the way, what is also very important, they will integrate relatively easily, right? Because we might think that we are different, but we are not that different, really. In many ways, not in all, but in many ways, our cultures are quite similar, right? Our way of life is quite similar. So these Western migrants, they are integrating in Russia relatively easily. Most difficult for them is to deal with bureaucracy, obviously, because bureaucracy is difficult stuff everywhere in this world, especially when it comes to migration. And that's why I'm saying that if it was up to me, I would recommend Russian leadership to make this bureaucracy a little bit easier for migrants, right, from the Western world that will have no problem to integrate into Russia. So bureaucracy is one problem, major problem that they will face. And another one is language. I mean, Russian language is not that easy to learn, but it is doable, by the way. There are many channels on internet, YouTube, for example, when many channels of Western migrants, and you can see how fast their Russian is improving, by the way. I mean, relatively fast, obviously, but I mean, it is doable, right? So yes, I hear, my answer is yes, I did hear about American Village, although I don't know exactly where that settlement is. I never been there. I don't know much of history about that. And dear friends, Jerry Cogan just donated on Boosty, and the comment is, hello Jerry and Happy New Year. And comment is, hi Lovan, Happy New Year to you, to all your family, and to everyone who follows this channel. Thank you very much, Jerry. There is no question there, but good wishes, kind wishes. So thank you, Jerry, and Happy New Year to you and your family, to your friends, to everybody, to all good people. So thank you. Also, did I miss question? Nick. Oh, Venture Dent is also commenting their news that a new virus from China is severe, and there thousands have been lining up to the hospitals. Is WHO downplaying this issue? Well, I have prepared news, by the way, about it. It happened so that I mean, there is questions in the chat, so I'm focused on community chat part of this live stream. But if I had no questions from you, dear friends, I would go through some news that I have prepared for this live stream. And one of the news is exactly about this outbreak of virus in China, and reports are that somewhat similar outbreak is happening in Kazakhstan, although we definitely need some more time to know exactly if it's a similar virus in China and Kazakhstan or not. And I reported about it yesterday on my Telegram also, that in some areas hospitals are overwhelmed in China. According to reports that I see, this virus is causing somewhat similar symptoms to COVID or to flu virus. Although I'm not a medic, by the way, I'm not an expert in field of all these viruses and stuff, so therefore I cannot tell you much about it. But yes, Russian media, they definitely pay attention to developing situation. And I don't know if we really want WHO to get involved big time, because last time WHO get involved, and this WHO is of course World Health Organization. Last time this WHO get involved in a situation with viruses, we had a worldwide shutdowns, right? So therefore, I don't know, are they downgrading this issue in China or not? But we should all monitor situation for sure. We should all be aware of developing matter, and should pay some attention, because who knows, maybe we are about to face yet another worldwide pandemic or something. So, you know, it is definitely something that we definitely need to pay some attention to. Also question from Nikos Levan: in the spirit of a young generation, so would your daughter be interested in joining you in one of those live streams and talk about the news of her generation, about SMO and NATO? Well, my daughter, my older daughter, is studies in university in journalism faculty, as many members of our community know, and we together made quite a few programs on, and I published those programs on Patreon and Boosty pages. I'm not sure if she will be okay to participate in a live stream. I don't think so. But you know, she is very busy. Obviously, she's a student, so there's so much to work to be done, right? So much to study and all that stuff. And unfortunately, she don't really have much time to participate in more programs for Patreon and Boosty. Although we constantly have conversation on that topic. Whenever she will have time, she will participate in the programs. But yet again, right now, if we will do some program extremely friendly as our bigger community, and I guess it's easier this way to get used to this journalistic work, right? And she's making first steps in this field, and I'm quite sure if she will be focused on study, and she will reach some significant heights in this profession. Journalism is a dangerous profession, but there is high demand, right, on a true journalists. So this is my question, dear friends. I don't think we will make programs on YouTube and Rumble anytime soon, but if this project will survive another year and then another year, sometime in the future, maybe once she will gain enough experience and confidence, then maybe, I don't know, maybe she will start her own channels. It's up to her. Also, question from Nidish Kumar: as a Russian, how do you view UK grooming or rape gangs issue? That's, you are talking about stories about UK Navy, isn't it? About especially in a submarine fleet. I read news about it. I did not share information during the updates, because I still think these stories are about some isolated some incidents. I don't think this is some sort of tradition in UK's Navy, although it is disturbing, obviously. It is disturbing that these horrifying stories are happening, and in some cases, according to reports that I see, officers knew what was going on and they were doing nothing, which is appalling, of course. But I find it difficult to believe that that's what is happening in UK's militaries in general. I don't know. But it is horrifying stories, by the way, that come out recently about UK Navy, especially submarine fleet. People are going crazy there, isn't it? It's horrifying, But information itself, yet again, demonstrates level of degradation in UK political class, in UK's elites, including military elites, by the way. And this degradation eventually will be noticeable. It will spread, isn't it? And it will become more and more noticeable on different levels in different fields. And this story is about UK Navy, I guess, at least indirectly confirming what I'm saying about it. Level of degradation of their culture among so-called elites in the West is unprecedented, I might say. Even before, decades ago, at least Western elites were trying to act like if they are decent people, right? Now they don't even try. Seems like now they don't even try. They just simply don't care what ordinary people, what we will think about them, right? Ordinary people. Their fellow citizens, non-fellow citizens, they just don't care, it seems like. I might miss some questions, dear friends. Miss Me with Ether is asking question: how do the general population feel about migration? Do they hate Americans if we were to want to move there? No, dear friends. There are some issues with migration. Don't get me wrong. Because Russian economy is overheating, isn't it? Russia is a major economy in a region. From many countries try to come to Russia for work, for better life, basically, and I can understand that, right? But issue is that quite often people are coming in, let's say from Central Asia, for example. People are coming in to work while they don't really know language. There they struggle to communicate, they struggle to integrate, and once they are here, they are bringing their families. And their families also, because they don't know language, they don't know much about local cultures, they are also struggling to get integrated into society. And this causes some disturbances in the social fabric, right? And therefore, so much so that Russian government just recently, a couple of days ago, made decision that people that are coming in without visas will be able to stay only 90 days now. Previously, it was 180 days in a year. Now it is 90 days. And some additional measures are taken by Russian government or local and federal authorities to balance the situation, because as I said already, Russia needs people, right? But it is also have to be checked that Russian side should be also how should I say, Russian should make sure also that these people that are coming in will integrate into society. They are ready for that. They want to integrate into society, right? And therefore some additional steps are put in place. For example, if you don't know language, you might, at least basics, by the way, you might struggle to come to Russia as a work migrant. If you bring your family, then as far as I understand, in some regions, migrants are prohibited to even bring their families, right? They have working contracts in place. Once this contract is expired, either contract will be prolonged or they have to go back to countries that they are coming from. But in any case, if they bring their families, because in some regions they might do it, those families also have to undergo language tests. They have to learn language. If they want to bring their kids into kindergarten or school, they have to know language, right? So some steps definitely being taken by Russian authorities to make sure that there is no enclaves of these migrants that are not integrated in society and are causing some disturbances in social fabric, right? Western Europe undergo such a Western Europe went in that direction, isn't it? And now in many areas in the West, you have kind of enclaves where people are living like in separate state, right? They are not at all integrated into society, and there are some disturbances because of it, right? So to avoid such a scenario, Russia is doing some stuff, some steps being taken, and maybe more even needs to be done. But in general, by the way, you asked me what people will think if someone from US will came here. I mean, as I said, Russia needs people. So if you come in with a good faith, if you coming to Russia with the intent to stay and integrate into society and be successful for yourself and you know, be success for society also, then you're more than welcome. And here, by the way, you're not gonna, I mean, if you go out, for example, if I now take this notebook with me and if I go out and start asking first 100 people on the street, first 100 people that I will meet, what you think about citizens of Western states, majority will say nothing bad. Some people probably will say they just don't think about people in the West, nothing. And some people probably will say, I mean, they have nothing negative to say about people, because ordinary people, I mean, it's ordinary people. We are all the same, right? We might speak different languages and stuff, be in different countries, but we are ordinary people, by the way. We should stick to each other, right? We should realize that we only have each other. And therefore, from 100 people, hardly anyone will say anything bad about people from, I don't know, US, UK, France, Germany, or I don't know, Italy or any other country, right? Maybe one will say something crazy, but that's about it, right? I'm 100% convinced in that, dear friends. So if you or your friends have plans to, you know, migrate to Russia, of course, some study has to be done about it, because migration is difficult stuff, isn't it? But you should not have a fear that you would not be received with a warm heart. No, you would be received with open arms. There will be no hate towards you, 100%. You should not worry about it, and don't take my word for it, by the way. I mean, there is quite a number of channels that are Westerners are doing on the internet, isn't it? Just take a look at those channels, you know. So I guess I did answer to Michael Kennedy is here. Hello, Michael. And once again, hello to everyone, dear friends. Thank you all for participating and for your attention. And well, it is more than an hour now. It is more than an hour. If I may, dear friends, I will end the update. Geoff Milner is asking, Russians friendly to tourists? Yes, I mean, why should not we be friendly towards tourists, man? I mean, it's I don't understand even I premise of the question. Is it even possible to be not friendly towards tourists? What they did wrong to me, I mean, or to society here? Nothing, right? They are coming in, they are enjoying themselves, you know, watching what Russia can offer, and Russia definitely can offer for tourists, I mean, great deal, right? And they are spending money, by the way, here. So they're benefiting economy. In that way also, they are getting know to culture, and when they will go back to their countries, they will share information, and more people will probably want to come to Russia and see it. So, I mean, it's only positive, by the way. Why should there be any negativity towards tourists, man? I don't understand. Jerry Kogan is asking, is education free in Russia? School is free. Yes, there are private schools, obviously, but they're public schools, right? And it's free. When it comes to university, if you have a good points, good scores, it is free for you. But if your scores are not good enough, then but you have a high scores anyways, then you will be eligible for a study credit. You can take a study loan from the bank, which is a really good option, because interest rate in these study loans are extremely low, by the way, way below inflation, right? So you have that option also. If you have a poor score, probably it is better to try next year again to get prepared better. Or you might have a choice to then go to private universities. But in general, if you have high scores, yes, study is free for you. And if you have high scores, but maybe not, top, then you will be eligible for a credit loan from a bank that is supported by country, by state, by the way. And that's why interest rate is extremely low. And many people are using this opportunity, of course. But if you have a lower creditor, lower score when it comes to points when you are applying for university, you always have option to go for a paid section. It's all about how good you are in your study. Also, Nikos is asking, last question. Why last, dear friend? I have to finalize this live stream, but I'm grateful for your questions, Nikos, and for questions from everybody. That's these live streams are called community chat for a reason, isn't it? This live stream is for us to have a just friendly talk, Speaking of migrants, what about the 5 million Ukrainian refugees? Are they safe? Do they like living in Russia? Have they become productive members of their society? Well, dear friend, if you don't know that this person or that person is a Ukrainian refugee, you will never guess, right? You'll never guess. That's why I'm saying always that this conflict is a civil war inside the Russian world, right? They are integrating in community as easy in general. They are part of community anyways. They don't even need to integrate in anything, right? They are part of Russian world from begin with, right? So all they have to do is, if they want to, they have an option to take Russian passport, which is done very easily for Ukrainians, right? For citizens of Ukraine. Bureaucracy is much less than in other cases, much less. There is almost no bureaucracy. There are some, but compared to other cases, if let's say French citizen wants to migrate to Russia, well, they're going to deal with significant bureaucracy. But Ukrainians, no, very little bureaucracy, but they will get the passport, and of course they are safe, by the way. They are, as I said, they are part of our community. And I know personally several Ukrainian refugees. I know that they are Ukrainian refugees, but if I did not have this knowledge, I would never think about it even, right? They are just ordinary members of society, and of course they are safe. Everybody is safe in Russia, by the way, as long as you are acting adequately, as long as you are not breaking the law and not doing some crazy stuff. You are okay, man. You are free to live your life, be happy, be successful. Just Russia is the greatest country in this world, by the way, and I'm not exaggerating, not even slightest. So of course they are absolutely safe here. And nowadays, by the way, I can tell you that relatively recently, family came to Russia, my relatives, by the way. And one of the members of this family is Ukrainian refugee, right? So I know what I'm talking about. And they came to Russia, and this Ukrainian refugee, is now in the process of take Russian citizenship, right? And yet again, if I did not know that he was a refugee, I would not tell ever, right? And he don't really need to integrate in anything. He speaks perfect Russian. Russian is his first language, right? For me, Russian is second language. For him, is first language, right? For me, first language is Georgian, and I might say second language is Ossetian, and third language is Russian, even, right? Although, you know, if you ask me, I speak Russian as far as I can remember myself. I don't even know when I learned Russian or how, right? So yes, they are safe, by the way. I lost I forget what I wanted to say, but they are safe. They are safe. Oh, and then I remember. So when this family was traveling, by the way, when they noticed in airport before they fly to Russia, more Ukrainians, and you know from where those Ukrainians were? From Western states. From Western states, by the way. People that went to the Western countries, they are now traveling to different countries around Russia, and then from there to Russia, and their citizenship and so on. My relative family, in that case, they were living in Georgia. So this person, this Ukrainian, was living in Georgia for last, I don't know, 10, 15 years or something. So yes, they are thorough check on the border, by the way. Russian security services are checking everybody to make sure that you know, there are no some assets of key regimes or terrorist, you know, institutions there. But and as long as you are okay, you are a good person, you have done nothing criminal or wrong against Russia, you are welcome. You know, hopefully I did answer to your question. Also, Bencher Dent is asking Levan, how is there corruption in the Russian police? In a YouTube channel, they rank Russia as a third. Well, dear friends, if you ask me this question some 15, 20 years ago, I would say that, well, corruption is one of the biggest problems in Russian police. Right now, corruption is still there. Corruption is still issue. And I guess this is the case everywhere. I mean, not just in Russia, but in Russia also. But what I can tell you is that we are observing war on corruption. For several years at least now, we are observing war on corruption. So, I mean, Kremlin went full on this war against corrupt officials everywhere, by the way, in all fields, right? In state institutions and just about everywhere. So therefore, you know, you might be surprised how effective this fight against corruption is being here in Russia. You know, and right now, and this is big topic for me personally, because I think corrupt officials are most dangerous enemies that Russia has, right? And corruption is something that should be dealt harshly, because corruption is destroying state institutions and societies, right? And there is active war on corruption, and there are some significant progress being made in this direction. I'm happy with it, but right now, if you ask me, I will say, you know what, more needs to be done for sure, but I'm happy that I can clearly see war against corruption. And I would not go into details, by the way, it will take another couple of hours. If I start giving you examples, But almost every other day, by the way, there are reports about operations that these anti-corruption teams are conducting, and I like that. I like that. Finally, we are seeing this real fight, real strong fight against corrupt officials and corruption. And when it comes to police, by the way, probably there are some corrupt, not probably, definitely, most likely there are some corrupt people in the police, but in general, improvement in law enforcement offices are quite staggering. I mean, you cannot compare modern Russian police to Russian police of, let's say, 15, 20 years ago. I mean, this is two different police from two different worlds, right? So I guess people has much more trust to police right now than 10, 15 years ago. Much more trust. Although there are always issues, by the way. Always. I mean, corruption, unfortunately, is something that hardly can be eradicated completely. Because some humans just have a corrupt mindset, and then that's it. It's all about human flaws. So there is a war on corruption, and I hope this war will continue and will further intensify even. I hope so. Miss me with Ether. Is there an Israeli lobby? Israeli lobby in Russia? I mean, we don't have anything like AIPAC in the US, but I mean, quite a number of successful businesses here in Russia belong to Jewish Russians or Russian Jews. Although, I mean, they are Russians, by the way. So, I mean, who cares? They are Jews or Muslims, Christians, or Buddhists. I mean, who cares? All right, what religion they have? They are, I mean, they are successful Jewish businessmen here in Russia, billionaires, by the way, quite a number of them. Some left when this whole confrontation began between Russia and West. Some of them left for Israel or other countries, but many remain here, and they are working for Russia, right? They are Russian citizens, and I don't think they are involved in politics too much, really. Because if you remember, one of the first steps that Putin took when he get to office of president was to, make sure that these oligarchs and all these businessmen that were thinking that they were on the top of the world, to make sure that these people are out of politics. So therefore, there might be some, connections between Russian Jewish community and Israeli Jewish community, but it's all okay, I guess. We don't have this AIPAC style of type of stuff, and therefore we don't have any issue with that, And relationships between Russia and Israel relationships was never great, really, but never too bad also. I mean, and I guess it will continue this way. Nidish Kumar is commenting, Levan, corruption is legal in US. They call them donors. Yeah, absolutely agree with you, dear friends. That's why I call US most corrupt country in the world, right? Because corruption is legal in US. They call it and donations when politicians are paid, by the way, to promote certain bills, certain ideas, and so on, which is crazy, man. Which is crazy, right? So yes, US is most likely most corrupt country in the world, even more corrupt than Ukraine, which is somewhat unbelievable. But in Ukraine, at least, corruption is not legal, right? In US, it is legal. So yes, I agree with you completely. Well, as time goes by, I get feeling that there was a certain exchange of information between Moscow and Ankara about upcoming offensive that Turkey basically overtake with their proxies to establish control over the Syria. And because at this point, I mean, sometimes in my updates, I may go a little emotional, and I'm saying that Russia should cut diplomatic ties with Turkey and so on. But to view situation on calm terms, on pragmatic terms, it is becoming obvious that Ankara and Moscow, they need each other right now, right? For many different reasons, and therefore, I guess Moscow's presence in Syria will be downgraded significantly, because I don't think Russia really needs to be there. Let Western world now pay for what they did to that country, right? And have responsibility for consequences. But I think if Russian militaries, if Russian strategists, Russian leadership thinks that for Russian security it is necessary to maintain bases in Tartus and Latakia, if they think it is necessary for Russian security to maintain these bases, I guess such an agreement will be reached, and maybe already been reached, between Moscow and Ankara. And as you can see, dear friends, there was, at least for now, there was no incidents between these pro-Turkish terrorists or Turkish-controlled terrorists and Russian forces. Right? So I guess Russian presence economically, politically, will be minimal in Syria, but Russia will probably maintain military bases and will pay Damascus whatever amount was agreed to have these bases there, and that's about it. Although I would not be surprised at all if Russian leadership will think that it is just too much. It will, I mean, presence of these bases will demand from Russia too much compromises with Ankara, with Turkey, and in that case, I guess Russia will, after some time, withdraw these bases, just to be on a stronger position when it comes to whatever negotiations or whatever work is in place between Moscow and Ankara, because this base is definitely vulnerability right now. I mean, obviously, right? Because if Ankara wants to, these bases can be under attacks on daily basis, but they are not. So I don't know. It's all about what kind of strategies Russian military and political leadership has in regards to presence of these bases. But when it comes to political or economical presence of Russia in Syria, I mean, I don't expect much in this regard. Dear friends, Mikhal is commenting asking why Russia not negotiate to install many hypersonic missile bases in Cuba, since USA look like to do it in Finland. Well, we don't know what kind of talks are between Moscow and Havana, isn't it? And then again, Russia has I mean, I don't know how many exactly, but I guess hundreds of missiles with multiple warheads, right? That can reach any point in US at any time. And therefore, I'm not quite sure that it is that necessary to have some hypersonic weapons in Cuba, really. That will further endanger Cuba, by the way, right? And people of Cuba already had enough, isn't it? And therefore, I don't think Russia will do anything to make life of Cubans any more difficult than it is already, due to illegal US embargo, right, and Western sanctions. So therefore, I mean, and I don't see any necessity to have any like missiles to Cuba. I mean, as I said, let's hope never ever Russia and US will go in against each other in full-scale war. But as a thought experiment, if you think that, I mean, war has begun, then both countries, by the way, US and Russia, has quite a lot of weapons that can reach any point on each other's territory without bringing any additional missile systems closer to the border, right? So if US is planning to bring some weapon systems close in Finland, I mean, from military standpoint, it is not necessary, really. It's just political statement, I guess. Because from military standpoint, that don't change much, really. You know? Because if missiles being launched, then that is end for everybody and everything, right? And it don't really matters from where you launch your missile. From Finland, from somewhere in northern US states or whatever, or from Finland or Japan, or, you know, if full-scale war begins, that will be end of everything, you know. In my personal opinion, although yet again, dear friends, I'm just sharing my reading of the big picture, isn't it? I'm not a military expert. I have said that a million times. And so whenever there is talks about some military stuff, take my opinion, and take my opinion about every other topic also, by the way, with pinch of salt. I mean, that's all okay, right? So David King, is Russia ready for USA funded jihadists? They will be trained in Syria. Well, US is training those jihadists since the Afghanistan war, by the way, right? There is nothing new for us in that regard. One should always keep in mind that Al-Qaeda was created with active participation of US, right? CIA. And on initial stages, these jihadists, these radical groups were used to fight Soviet troops in Afghanistan. And at some point, I guess, Western ruling class realized that they can use for their geopolitical purposes these terrorist organizations, and they start to spread these terrorist groups all around the world, right? Especially in the Middle East. And Al-Qaeda, ISIS, or any other terrorist organization, almost any other, by the way, that you can think of, if you trace their roots, you will end up somewhere close to CIA and MI6, right? You know, so it's nothing new for Russia, and I guess it is now more of an issue for the Western world, because this only way West can get rid of these jihadists if they will send them, let's say, into Central Asian republics that are bordering with China, for example, then to infiltrate China and destabilize northern western parts of China. I think that's exactly what plan was of the Western ruling class. That's why they were keeping Idlib province, where all these leftovers from their initial jihadist terrorist groups were based until recently. But I mean, in my personal opinion, West made a big mistake, because they might be in control of leadership of these terrorist groups, right? But I don't think CIA, MI6, or any other Western secret service is in charge of every commander in these terrorist organizations. And who knows what these psychos gonna do, right? Because in their ideology, US is not their friend, right? UK is not their friend. Western world is not their friend. So therefore, just control over the top commanders of these terrorist groups don't make Western world any more safer from potential attacks of these very same terrorists that receive money, weapons, and training from the Western militaries or the secret services. So I think these jihadist forces in Syria or elsewhere are much more bigger danger for Western world than it is for Russia, because Russia knows how to deal with these risks since the Afghanistan war. You know, it is danger. I'm not downgrading nothing. It is danger, but Russia knows how to deal with it. I don't know about West, but you know. And dear friends, it is more than 1.5 hours. We had quite a good conversation, isn't it? We had quite good conversations, dear friends. We spoke about many topics, right? And if I may, I will end this update because I promised my family members that this evening we will go for a little walk. It's a New Year celebrations, isn't it? And Christmas is coming, by the way. We Orthodox Christians celebrate Christmas on 7th of January, so it's a holidays here, and so that's why I am making this live stream this early. And so thank you all, dear friends, for your attention and support, for your questions, for your comments. Many thanks to all the members of our community who will watch this video in a recording. Have a wonderful day, and I see you tomorrow. Thank you.